Hello, my name is Greg Harradine. I'm a composer, and welcome to episode 26 of Good Art, Bad Art, where I discuss a certain song or album or composition and try to figure out, is it good art or is it bad art? Now today, it's another suggestion from one of my wonderful viewers. Today it's from Matt Nolan, who is an independent metal percussion instrument maker. Check out his YouTube. I'll put a link in the description. And Matt was kind enough to send me a video with his suggestion. So, over to you, Matt.
Hi Greg, Matt Nolan here. I really enjoyed your recent video review, your good art, bad art take on None of Them Knew They Were Robots by Mr. Bungle. It made me really want to suggest to you another Mike Patton project, his band Fantômas, and their album Suspended Animation. I think that one you really have to come at from a sound art point of view rather than a music songs point of view, at least in my opinion. Although that's not to say that there aren't little vignette songs hiding in there in the wonderful mental pictures that they paint with Mike's voice, the instruments, and all the crazy samples and sound effects and little clockwork and electronic toys that are jammed into that thing. I hope you do it. I look forward to seeing it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for that, Matt. And I was delighted to get the suggestion of something by Fantômas. I've been a big fan of Mike Patton for a very long time, and I'm glad to already be very familiar with this album, Suspended Animation. So it will come as no surprise to learn that I think it's an example of great art. But why is that? Let's get into it. So for those who don't know, Fantômas is a sort of a supergroup, I suppose. You could describe them as avant-garde metal, perhaps. They've been described as Dada-metal. Dada being the art movement from the early 20th century, which was very anti-establishment and interested in irrationality and nonsense. Which, yeah, I think that's quite a good description of Fantômas in a way. Dada-metal. Anyway, we've got Mike Patton on vocals. We've got Buzz Osborne from the Melvins on guitar, we've got Trevor Dunn from Mr. Bungle on bass, and we've got Dave Lombardo from Slayer on the drums. Amazing. Now, Suspended Animation is a concept album, and it fuses the ideas of cartoon music with that of metal, really. You wouldn't necessarily think these are great bedfellows, these two ideas, but turns out they are. There are 30 tracks, a lot of tracks, and the album runs at roughly 43, 44 minutes, I think. Shortest tracks are around 30 seconds, longest a mere 3 minutes, most of them about 1 minute something. And yeah, they're short, they're frenzied. What we hear is we hear snippets. It's like cut and paste, short little slices of either great, interesting metal riffs, or barely even riffs, just little rhythmic ideas, interspersed with samples from cartoons, with the sound of toys, and it chops and it changes constantly. It keeps you on high alert when you listen to this. Each track is named after the days of the month of April, starting on April Fool's Day, working through the month. And each day is linked to a national holiday. Apparently there are these obscure national holidays from around the world. For example, the 17th of April is National Cheeseball Day in the US of A. Of course it is. And the 25th of April is Cuckoo Day here in the UK, where I am. So there we are. Let me just say something from a Pitchfork review of this album. And it wasn't a great review, actually. The Pitchfork reviewer wasn't a huge fan. They said, musical ideas either bleed from one song to the next or don't sustain themselves long enough to register in the listener's head. Well, I would say that's the whole point. That's the entire point. Ideas are meant to bleed from one to the next and aren't meant to go on because it's inspired by cartoon music. Think what happens in cartoons. Think of those great old Looney Tune cartoons with music maybe by Carl Stalling, who was an incredible composer. He wrote, believe it or not, he wrote a score each week, on average, for 22 years for these kind of cartoons. That's over 1,000 scores. And what happens in cartoons, it's very fast-paced. A cat is chasing a mouse, something else happens, then the cat's chased by a dog, something else happens. Things are changing all the time, and the music has to follow that. And that's what Mike Patton has put together in this album. So there are no conventional musical structures. It's just constantly changing. Let me just give you a few rundowns of a few tracks very quickly, just so you can see what's going on here. So track 14 starts with the sound of sort of winding up a toy. Then we get a sample from an opera. Then a really tasty metal riff with Mike Patton shouting that schoolyard phrase, "You're it, you're it." Track 19, we get the sound of a fairground organ. And the pitch is shifting up and down. It's like you're on a carousel almost at a fairground, going round and round. And as you pass the organ, the Doppler effect, raises the pitch. Or you hear the pitch going up and down as you go round and round. Disconcerting, disorienting. The whole album is a bit disconcerting, but in a really fun way. Track 21, we get the sound of a peaceful harp. Isn't that lovely? Not for long though. Then we get a vocal and guitar pattern in 5/8 with some lovely otherworldly harmonies over the top. And yes, with some cartoon sound effects. And then at the end of that track, we get a trumpet solo with some synthesized church bells. Track 26, we get some kids talking through the alphabet, and then a bit of swing rhythm on the hi-hat. And then, yes, some avant-garde metal. So yes, it's just utterly fascinating. You want to listen to it loud, on your own, give it 100% attention. And Matt raised a good question, is it a sonic art or is it music? And how do you draw the line, really? Gershwin, I think it was, who said, I frequently hear music in the very heart of noise. And obviously for people like Mike Patton, the two are indistinguishable, I would say. Noise, music, sonic art, it's all part of the big melting pot of his creative language. There's so much more I could say, but I'm running out of time. I love how this album ends. It ends with a quote from the amazing cartoon, "What's Opera, Doc?" And it ends with Bugs Bunny saying, "Well, what did you expect in an opera? A happy ending?" And this is just after we've heard some sort of moaning and groaning from Mike Patton as if he's stuck in a crypt or something. Anyway, if you have an open mind, give this album a listen. I highly recommend it. I give it a score. I mean, scores don't have much meaning really, but 86 out of 100. Fascinating album. Thank you, Matt, for recommending it. See you next time.